Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the organizing committee at first for giving me the opportunity to present my views. And the topic of my paper, as you can see, is the market for tertiary response in the Indian market, highlighting the dynamics of short-term market for tertiary reserve. So the global warming is rising, right? And I would like to share one of my observation that today, if we want to cool ourselves while we are at home or in our offices, we set that AC temperature to around 24-25 degrees Celsius, and we feel okay with it. But it might happen that in near future, that minimum temperature to cool ourselves might go around 30-31 degrees Celsius. So I think in that case, we have to be forcefully happy with that. And this contributes for the emission of carbon dioxide gases, as you all know, and that results in the global warming. So moving on to what is the motivation behind this paper? As it has been said day in and day out at this conference and everywhere else, that India has set a target to fully integrate 175 gigawatt of renewable energy in our grid by the year 2022. And there is also another target in the news. I think it's around 500 gigawatt of energy by the year 2030. So this is quite a target to achieve. But I think the percentage of renewables in the energy mix is actually more important than the actual value, because it actually directly impacts to the inertia of our system. So coming on to the renewable energy, as we all know that renewable energy comes with its advantage of the clean energy. We are quite familiar with that unlike our conventional power plants, this renewable energies, they do not emit the CO2 gases in our atmosphere, and thus our environment is much protected than while using our conventional power plants. But this renewable energy, it actually comes with a lot of unpredictability, and there is also a ramping effect in our solar generation. And therefore, it requires to we need sufficient reserves to store this energy. And for that purpose, I think that this market for tertiary reserves, these act as like storing the energy so that we can use this energy reserved in the tertiary reserves. We can use that for when there is a sudden dip or rise in the frequency. So as I already explained, tertiary reserve can help restoring the frequency to value closer to the nominal following a sudden dip or rise in the frequency. So in India, this tertiary response is already being done. It is provided by our central generating stations, and the tariff for this is determined by the CERC by the section 62 and 63 of our Central Indian Electricity Act. So what happens in this, the central generating stations, they have some unrequisitioned surplus, and this URS these are dispatched to the RRS in the form of, these are dispatched from the URS to the RRS. So what are the challenges challenges of URS from the central generating stations? I would like to summarize the three possible fates of URS from the CGS. First one, the URS available at the central generating stations that might be recalled back by the original beneficiary. The second one will be a different buyer. They might put a requisition for that available surplus. And the third one is that URS might be dispatched to the RRS by the system operators. So you can see this, with this possible challenges, there might be a conflict of purpose for the requisition of URS. So although this URS helps in the energy balance and also creates uniformity in the market, but but it might not create the uniformity, the non-uniformity in restoring our frequency. So along with this point, here is a graph, and it is shown that, as you can see, in the 43rd to 49th block, there is the URS required in that particular time blocks. It is not sufficient enough to restore our frequency. So these things can be avoided by forecasting errors, and as we also know that this forecasting error, it has been practiced, it is being practiced in and used in many different countries in determining the amount of reserve that we require to nominalize our frequency at times of need. So now, putting on some light on the international practice of Germany. As we all know that Germany has integrated a lot of renewable energy in their system quite successfully, and we can obviously learn from them. So in their practice, they actually have two types of reserves. One is the frequency restoration reserve, and the second one is frequency containment reserve. So the frequency restoration reserve, it might be positive or negative, and separate charges are given to the generators for this particular type of reserve. So what happens in this case, that a generator who is willing to participate in this FRR, so that generator places a capacity bid along with an energy bid. So after placing the bids, the generators, how will the generators will be selected? These generators are obviously selected on the basis of their capacity bid from lower to higher until the requirement of the system operators are fulfilled. And now you might be thinking that what happens if there are two or more generators, they have the same capacity bid. In that particular case, in the practice of Germany, they actually look to the energy bid. Means for that two generators, their energy bid will come into light. So the generator having the lower bid in the energy reserve, energy price, that will be selected first, and that will go on. So with this FRR, the provision of control reserve capacity and deployed energy, these both are separately paid, as I already discussed. Now, coming on to the energy bid. So those generators who are being selected for the, who have cleared their bidding, and they will be paid for the energy. And energy price will be paid to the generators after the real-time dispatch. And now coming on to the frequency containment reserve. As you can see that FCR is procured as a symmetrical product. That means there will be only one-time payment, and there will be no different energy charge. As there will not be, actually this is the practice going on, and as I have already said, this is the practice of Germany. And in this particular case that we have seen in the FRR, that these generators, they are being paid as per their bid. So this is a classic case of non-uniform pricing, where they are given their prices at which they have placed their bids. So now, in correlation with the practice in the Germany, with in our Indian market, well, as you all know that in India, this tertiary response, it is actually being, this practice has been done from the URS, from the central generating stations. But here, I'm proposing a market for the unregulated generators. So obviously, this tertiary response from the unregulated generating plants is new. And thus, I would like to propose that we can go for a uniform pricing. so that the fixed pricing will be helpful. So just because it's a new product in the market, and due to there are the uncertainties in the market, and to increase the participation, we can opt for a uniform bid, and later on, when the market is being fully settled, we can introduce the competition later. So now coming on to the selection of generators. How will the generators will be selected? As I already discussed earlier, the willing generator, they will be bid the volume in megawatt and the price in the megawatt hour for each time block. And accordingly, the selection of the generators will be from lower to higher bids until the requirement of the system operator is fulfilled. So now, after the selection of generators, the generators are eligible for the payment of fixed charges, and if real-time dispatch allows, they are eligible for the variable charges. So here, I have actually focused on uniform pricing. So how will the fixed charge will be determined, that at which price we need to pay to the generators. So here we can say that the average price at the day-ahead energy exchange will be fixed charge of the capacity at each time block. So what is this average NCP? Average NCP will be the averaged out of the 96 MCPs of day-ahead energy market. So one might think that how this price will be eligible, or how this price is sufficient for recovering the cost of the generators. So it has been seen in a perfectly competitive market in the long run equilibrium that the exchange price, it is actually, it can recover both the fixed charges as well as the variable charges for the generator. So then a pool will be created to pay to the generators, like for the pay-in and payout of the charges. And then in order to pay the charges, a system operator might think that how are we going to pay to these generators after we do not have any funds. So they can introduce reliability support charge of like 0.02 per kilowatt hour, and that might be billed to the short-term open access customers. You might be thinking that why only the short-term open access customers, no, why not the long-term or middle-term? Because here I am focusing on the short-term dynamic approach, and obviously it can be charged, or it can be, a model may be built for the long-term or the medium open access customers. And what if the generators are being paid the fixed charges, and what if there is no real-time dispatch, means there is no requirement at real time, there is no need to dispatch any of the energy. So in that case, even without the real-time dispatch, the fixed charges will be payable to the generator only, and not the energy charges. So now moving on to the payment of variable charges. As I already discussed, these variable charges are related with the energy charges that are being determined after the dispatch of the energy. So it is this payment of variable charges, it is done in almost a similar fashion to our current energy market. But in this case, the average MCP will be used as a datum for the 50 Hertz frequency. So at the frequency, 50 Hertz frequency, this MCP will be used to determine the scheduled quantum of dispatch. And as we all know that the actual frequency may vary at any time block. It varies, either it might be higher or lower. So the actual dispatch and actual energy price, it is actually linked to the frequency of that particular time block. So here I have proposed that if with each decrement of frequency by 0.01 hertz from 50 hertz, the variable price might be increased by rupees 200 per megawatt hour, and for any increase in frequency by 0.01 hertz from 50 hertz, the variable price is decreased by rupees 100 per megawatt hour. As this is a simple economic concept, as we all know that if frequency is lower, then obviously that means our supply is lower and our demand is much higher. So in simpler economic terms, we can say that as our demand is high, so obviously the prices may go high. So here is a lookup table with respect to our the frequency and the pricing, how this, going on to the last slide, I have created a block that with increase in frequency, there is the variance of charges. So in this lookup table, there are two values, and the value 1 is for one of the values is the average NCP of a particular one area, and the second one is for the rest of India. So it has it can happen that in a particular area, the average NCP, the price might be too high, or it might vary from the whole as a whole India, the whole MCP. Yes. So in this case, the generators belonging to those areas will be paid accordingly. So now for the ancillary up service, the variable payment charges will be given to the ancillary provider, and if the ancillary down service is there, the payment will be by the generators. And for this payment of this pay-in and payout of the process, a deviation pool will be maintained by the Indian power system. And I can tell you that this deviation pool, this already exists in our energy market, and it's already practiced, the pay-in and payout of the charges. So now moving on to the ancillary dispatch efficiency. So in the schedule of a generator, there might be two components. One is the energy component, and the second one is the reserve component, or the ancillary schedule. So the reserve energy component is the requirement of the beneficiary, and the reserve component, that is the ancillary schedule given by the system operators to the generator. So there might be a deviation in the charges of the principal. So, so this ancillary dispatch efficiency, it might be positive or negative. So when the direction of deviation vector is equal to the direction of ancillary, that is the case of positive dispatch efficiency, and if similarly we have the negative efficiency. So, so if there is, we can say that more the deviation along the ancillary dispatch, more will be the efficiency. So as you all see that time is running out and they have rang the bell for me, so I would like to conclude within 2 minutes. So if what happens if the deviation is in the direction of AS, the amount will be paid to the generator, and if the ancillary, if there is the deviation is in the opposite direction of ancillary, the amount, the generator will be penalized, and the generator will have to pay back to the deviation pool. And there will also be a deviation pool that will be utilized for the pay-in and payout of the ancillary efficiency prices. So coming on to my last slide, that is what are the future scopes of research. So as the value in megawatt of reserve requirement in each time block has to be perfectly determined, it has been seen from various researchers that solar plants can be forecasted to a greater efficiency than the wind power plants. So, and I can also say that the error of wind forecast can be used as a benchmark for the amount of reserve required for a particular time block. And after suitable experiences is being gathered, we can go for the pay-as-bid mechanism and rather than uniform pricing. So I would like to say that this is just a model, and just my perspective view, and this whole analysis will be dependent on the amount of integration. So thank you very much.